Hello everyone, today I'd like to talk about Neil Diamond. Now Neil Diamond as an artist, I didn't really get into early on, mainly because I barely hear his music on the radio. Now we're talking about like either early to mid 90s, and the stuff I've been listening to, top 40 music. If not top 40, it would be like smooth jazz or classic rock or heck, even oldies. But for some reason, the oldies station don't really play his stuff outside of maybe "You Don't Bring Me Flowers" by Barbra Streisand. So I wasn't really familiar with his music until I was able to get this album. Now I got this album from Musicland, and there's this Musicland shop that was in an outlet mall. So it was a Musicland outlet, and they had a bunch of stuff they were clearancing out. Mainly, I think there were open CDs, but not like bought and return. I think there were CDs where their Musicland stores across the state or across the country, um, when they finished, like I think they were used as demo or listening, for listening, and when they're done, they just kind of give it to this outlet center to clearance out. And CDs back then, if you could get them whether new or used for something like this for $5, it's worth it. I mean these days, you could probably get them for $1 or two, but back then, $5 is super cheap. So I picked this up, and it's a double CD set too. So I saw the value in it. Whether I liked the music or not was another story back then. But I picked it up, and when I brought it home and listened to the both of them, I was pleasantly surprised, very impressed with his style of music. Now, I going through it a couple times, I think I realized I have heard his music before, just never associated with Neil Diamond at the time. And for me, I really enjoyed his early years, like his, Solitary Man, Cherry Cherry, those years. And I think that's his Bang label. And I didn't know he had all those songs. And up to his 70s stuff is pretty good too, up through his Columbia years, and then, his early 80s stuff. I'd say up to his early 80s, I've really enjoyed. And when I got this album, it was one of those where I really had this on heavy rotation as a kid. If I got tired of listening to top 40 or stuff like that, I would play this album. Now, the problem with this album, or I wouldn't call it a problem, my first album, it wasn't really a problem. It was out of curiosity that there were a lot of songs on here that were live versions. Okay, so they weren't the studio versions, they were live versions. And, I said to myself, especially his early years that I enjoyed, and I said to myself, is there a way to maybe get a greatest hits? Of his early stuff that I like that are live on here, but it's the original studio versions of them. And at the time, I think I described this in earlier videos where there's no disclaimer or anything that these were live versions. They just listed all the songs, but you didn't know if they were live or not. So I figured, maybe get something Neil Diamond that has the regular versions, the studio versions that are live on here, so I could have that would cover both. And it wasn't a while until going to another record store, and I did ask someone at the counter. I don't know if that guy was knowledgeable or not. I think he was, but he said you needed to get, if you wanted to get his Neil Diamond, those songs that were live, that are original recordings, try to get his greatest hits, his original one. I think it's called his 12 greatest hits, and that should have the original version. Funny that, coincidentally, I would say, like maybe a year or so after I got that double CD, I was able to pick this up. Now, this is his 12 greatest hits, and it's kind of unique in a sense. It's a master disc, whatever that means, but basically the CD is gold. Still worthless, but it's a gold CD. And I picked this up. I actually spent more money on this, even though it was on, I don't know if it was on, no, it wasn't on clear, so it was on sale. Cost more than the double CD I got. I think this was like $7 or something. So I went ahead and played it, and to my disappointment, there's still live songs on there. For just 12 of them, I think half of them, I'd say, were live. And now, it got to a point where after picking this and listening to it, I was really pissed off. I spent quite a bit of money. People don't think it's much, but for me, it's like, hey, you spent all this money and you still hadn't got his, like, the songs you wanted, right? So at that time, I was like, okay, I'm going to hold off on Neil Diamond and listen what I can listen, and maybe go to the library, right, and see if they can pick up his albums, like his studio albums or something, and be able to, listen to how the original songs were for the ones I like. Believe it or not, it's hard to find any Neil Diamond albums at the library. If anything, there would be his newer album releases back then, would be mid-90s or so. I think Hot August Night was on there, Hot August Night 2, and then some other stuff, I don't know, that he released during that decade that I wasn't really interested in. I really wanted just to listen to his old stuff, but studio recordings. And it's been a while, and I basically forgot about him until I was able to pick up a couple CDs in no particular order, but that were on either clearance or like at a garage sale or something like that. And they all have the same problem. So I was able to pick up another one called Glory Road. And this one's not so bad either, but they also have live versions of songs, different ones than the ones on the original one I bought, my very first album of his. And I picked this up, The Essential Neil Diamond, and then Neil Diamond Go. Now both of these are also compilation double CD sets. And this one in particular, if I recall, if I had the case with me, there's a sticker, a label on the front that said all the songs were hand-picked by Neil Diamond himself. Now, the problem with that is a quarter of the songs on there are still live versions. At least this time, both of these, and I think the other one too, both of these, they actually put a live on all the tracks that were actually live this time. So, when you look at the track listing, you know that there are live songs. Now, I didn't mind at the time because I could care less. I just wanted I think these were like going for $5 or something. I didn't care. I just wanted to pick it up. Maybe see if there are any differences with the live versions. Maybe the live versions are just the way to go. Maybe they're just so popular. But when I listen to the live versions, regardless of which song or which compilation, man, they suck. I just don't. I don't know if it's the recording of it. Maybe the recording of the live versions weren't good or whatnot, but it just didn't feel good. And then the audience, sometimes when they sing along, they hum along, and yeah, I kind of get it. But if I wanted to hear a live album of live songs, I rather prefer to get the live album and listen to it, not in a compilation like this. Now, this one's kind of unique in the sense that there's half the songs I've never even heard of. They're not in my original 2-album compilation, and I think this is more for a hardcore fan, this one. But anyway, so it's been, and I picked these up, I'd say mid-2000s, around there, early to mid-2000s. Now, I kind of gave up on Neil Diamond again, assuming I'll never, ever listen to his studio recordings, original ones for the early songs that I really liked. It's not until, like, I'd say 2010 or so, I'd like to get this one. This album came out, I think 2010. Let me take a look. 2011, okay. So this one came out, and this is the very first album, they said that the original studio recordings. And this is the one I actually paid full price. I think I paid like $10 at I forgot where, Circuit City. I don't know if they closed before then, but I know I paid full price for this, or close to full price. The thing it's still shrink wrap is there are a couple reasons. First of all, these songs on here, there's a few that I've never heard of. I think they're from his later years that I didn't really care about. Second, but most importantly, it's the I don't know. I prefer to get this album with all his studio recordings, right? So I really want to get this album. So 2 CDs with all the same songs, but original, all the original ones. And it's because this is only one CD, it's missing quite a bit of songs on here. That's why I've never opened it. Funny, a few years later, I was able to procure this. His all-time greatest hits. Now, this one I opened, and I got this one on clearance too. I think it was from a music store that was closing at the time. And the reason why I opened it was because of this. This pretty much covered all his early stuff. I think from his 60s to maybe his mid 70s stuff. Everything on there. And it pretty much covered every live version that was on here is now a studio recording on here. So I figured, hey, okay, this would replace the live versions of this. So now I have all I need. And pretty much that was the plan. And I still hate it because, you know, after I'm done with this, I got to go and basically put on the second CD of this just to keep continuing on. And eventually I realized many years down late after I got this that there's actually a deluxe version of this album. It's it's just basically called All Time Greatest Hits, but the deluxe version. And it's essentially this. It's a double CD that has all this, and then a few other songs, his newer stuff too. But they actually had it. But I for sure never ever saw the deluxe version in any record store, brick and mortar at the time. And I only found out much later when I was doing some research that there was actually a deluxe version that you could get online, like at Amazon or something like that. So this would have been perfect if I was able to get the deluxe version, but I didn't. And the reason why is this. I got this like quite a couple years before that. And now this is his, in my lifetime, it's his box set. And this came out in 1995 or 96. 96. So this came out in 96. Now, I do remember seeing this at Tower Records in their box set section. And, you know, back then, box sets were like 30, 40, 50 bucks. And, for me at that time, that's a no-no. And now, having picked this up at I'm pretty sure it was a garage sale or estate sale, I picked this up. Now, when I listened to this is exactly what I wanted. Like, every song on here are the studio original recordings of everything. The only problem with this is more for a hardcore fan, not a casual fan like myself. Hardcore fan being, there's a lot of like demos, outtakes, or different versions that I could care less about, right? It's just, I just want his greatest hits and in its original form. This has it and a lot more. Now, the thing is, I wish Neil Diamond, and it was probably back then like a licensing issue, because I did realize a bit later that, he was on 3 different labels, right? The Bang Years, his original one. Then he moved to, was it MCA, I think? And then that's in the 70s. And then Columbia, Sony in the 80s. And I get there are some licensing issues at the time. So the time I got the very first album I got of his, the double CD from 1996 to 92, or yeah, it's 1966 to 1992. That came out before this, so there might have been licensing issues, but since then, I mean, this is all the original versions. I'm assuming he could have done a more compact, casual fan compilation like the one I brought up, his the Essential Neil Diamond, where he handpicked all his hits. This could have done justice if this was the original recordings. And this, again, this came out in like early 2000s or something like that. So licensing shouldn't have been an issue since he was able to do that already in this one. And I guess what I'm getting at after all this is this. It took from his very first, mid 1960s, all the way to basically 2010 to get a compilation, 2010, 2011, 30, 40 years, right, of songs, compilation, albums, whatever you have not, for Neil Diamond, to be able to finally put out a greatest hits compilation for the casual fan like myself that would have all the original recordings, studio recordings, nothing live, right? And again, there's nothing good about his live versions. Now, you may say, differently, whatnot, but all I can say is this. After listening to the original recordings, studio recordings, over his live stuff, I much prefer this. Hands down. There's just no comparison. Just get he deserves his own compilation of original recordings right from the start. Hands down, right from the start. And to me, if you notice all the albums I have of Neil Diamond, really, this is the only one that really all I ever would listen to because it's all the original studio recordings. And I just wish, for the casual fan's sake, and I'm talking to Neil Diamond, I wish he was able to do something like this in a compact form way back in the mid 90s. And with all the original studio recordings of his hits, and that's it, nothing else, no demos, no outtakes, no extra stuff, just his pure hits in original studio recording form. And I think he would have made a lot of people happy, like myself. For sure, I would have been happy instead of being pissed off, being frustrated, and whatnot. So, I know it took a while, and eventually it did come out. I wish it was done correctly the first time. And like I said, that album I pulled out from 1966 to 1992, that very first album I bought of Neil Diamond, if that one was same song set, just essentially, all his original studio recordings, I would have been a much more happier place, I guess, from a Neil Diamond perspective than my experience as a kid going all the way through finally getting what I wanted. So anyway, to me, I think I'm probably going to title this Neil Diamond Must Hate His Casual Fans, but and I think he might not know it, but he's pissed off a lot of people. I'm pretty sure a lot of people were in the same situation as I was when it comes to compilation of his greatest hits. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. If you're Neil Diamond, pick this one up. You could get this used pretty much. This is the only album you need. But if you don't want this kind of old school, book form, pick the other one I mentioned, this one. But get the deluxe version. The deluxe version has the 3 songs needed, the necessary ones. Heartlight, which is actually my favorite Neil Diamond song. Yesterday Songs, and Forever in Blue Jeans, I think. I don't know, but maybe not. But he has some good stuff up to the early 80s. Longfellow Serenade probably is another one. So definitely pick either the deluxe version, or I really recommend just getting this. And that's the only Neil Diamond album you need from a casual fan. All right. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed it.